Quote, in my maybe 60 applications, half have been cold and not a single one has gotten back to me. But I've had a lot of luck with referrals. This is what Nat F told me when we were talking recently, and it mirrors what I have been observing about how people choose to put their energy in certain styles or strategies for getting jobs. And it's interesting in these conversations that a lot of people like to express their frustration by telling me, how many jobs they've applied to, hundreds, or how long they've been looking, almost a year. This is proof, they think, that is something is wrong. They should have gotten a bite by now. But an employer sided market, when supply is constrained, the effort we have to put in is going to necessarily be a lot more than what we used to. I'm Josh Levine. I've spent the last 20 years paying attention to how work actually works, technology, culture, incentives, and the stories we tell ourselves about capitalism doing what it's supposed to do. This podcast is me in real time trying to understand how AI is impacting job seekers and job hirers, and maybe eventually what to do about it. I'm on a mission to talk to 100 people about what they're experiencing. This is the Job Market Shit Show. Episode 9. Is it who you know? How people are and aren't landing interviews. So I sort people into two camps when we're talking about how they choose to spend their energy applying to jobs. There's the scale side versus the signal side. Now, of course, it's really a spectrum, but let's think about it like two ends. Scale is about quantity. And I've talked on previous episodes about how applicants can get so desperate that they essentially use tech to game the system. They're going to spend their time applying to as many jobs as possible, maybe using AI or hitting that mashing that easy apply button on LinkedIn as much as possible. So that's the scale side. And it's a totally reasonable response. And then the other is signal. It's the quality approach. This is about a more selective strategy, only applying to jobs under the ideal conditions. And if those conditions aren't right, they work to actually make them right. What I find compelling is how, if we think about people like Nat, who has decided they will no longer cold apply to jobs, that extreme end of quality of signal is a really strong line. And like I said, it's a we all land somewhere in between. Uh, just last week, I found a job that I thought sounded interesting, and I don't know, was it going to be a fit? And I just tossed a resume in, and I did land an early interview, TBD on how that goes. But the point is that we have to understand where we're putting our energy and what our options are in order to make that choice. And it feels like to a lot of people that there isn't a choice, but I'm here to say that there is. Another of these people who are way on that signal end is AJ. And I was talking to AJ this week, and she's only applying to jobs where she knows someone or can get an intro to a friend of a friend. That's it. She's diligent. When she finds a job, she's going to reach out to any and every one. And she reaches out before she applies. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Probably is in some cases and isn't in others. She said that she was doing her due diligence and reaching out. And then when she finally spoke to somebody and got her resume ready to apply, the job was already filled. So that's a risk. But my larger point is that She is deliberate. She will not apply to a job if she cannot get an intro to someone inside the organization that will likely be able to tell her about the work or intro to someone else. She was describing how actually she looks weekly at job posts by a large consumer brand in town. And the reason she's always looking there is because she knows a lot of people. Now, it is would be a great name to work for sure. And she's just diligent about that because that is a place that has a lot of jobs and it's there's a lot of people that she knows. And the other tip that she gave me is that when you're following particular companies, look for those people, for people at that company that are reposting the job on LinkedIn. That is a great signal. Hey, you're actually interested. I probably have a secondary connection, if not a first. That is a great tool if you can surface that. Anyways, that was a little bit of a hot tip digression. But the what I've mentioned previously that is worth repeating is that in this market, there's way too much noise and not enough signal. Noise being all of the ways that you apply for a job. It's so easy. The friction is so minimal. The cost is so minimal. And so the noise is really high. It could be anything that's applying for a job with a resume, with a, just you can get a bot to fill it in. And when you have that much noise, the signal is scrambled. And so if you can get a human to make an introduction or mention your name, while it's always been valuable, right? This isn't a new idea. I think that it's actually becoming more valuable to actually have someone who says, I'm not a bot. This person, I know this person. They are a real person. They're not a scammer. And they're actually someone who I believe might be a good fit for this job. I know it doesn't guarantee you the job, of course, but it will probably get you closer to getting that interview. So AJ says it this way. She describes it as sending signals. I know your friend, the signal being, quote, I know your friend who knows the hiring manager, right? Like there's this network effect. It's not a bot, it's a real human. And that I think is really powerful. Another piece of this puzzle here is something else that Nat told me in our conversation was that they were previously able to get a job and multiple jobs riding on their charm and curiosity, which I chuckled at because that's definitely how I operated in the world. It was you could just charm your way into a job. I kind of have this skill, this charisma, and it just works. But in this market, that doesn't work anymore. And it is a example, and you may not, you may not have succeeded on the same kind of charm and charisma, but you had there, it was a little easier. You could sneak around the corners, right? You could use your soft skills. But in this market, Nat said that they have had to get extremely sharp in how they communicate their value and leave no doubt that they can do the job. We need to, in this market, work harder. We need to be more buttoned up. We need to do the homework. I mean, that could mean a career coach, or taking a course on how to apply or what is happening, and that's great. But a career coach is fantastic, just like a trainer at a gym is fantastic. You're going to hit your goals better, but it's not like that person at the trainer is going to tell you something that you don't know. They're there to provide expert guidance and mostly accountability. And that's what the value is here. But I don't think that you need the career coach, but you do need to be buttoned up. Third person I want to mention on today's episode, I just spoke to him yesterday. His name is Mac Pritchard. He's a career expert and runs a local job board called maxlist.org for over 25 years, local for me. I'm in Portland, so it's Oregon and Washington, it's Pacific Northwest. And I was really interested in hearing what he had to say about finding a job in this market. And he essentially was like, okay, yes, I understand AI and I understand all the crazy stuff going on. He's like, but I'm going to tell you the three things that have always been true and will continue to be true. You need to get really clear about the job you want, the company you want, and the value you provide. And there's obviously a double click or a deep dive on each of those. But what that makes me realize in conjunction with what Nat described is we need as candidates to be much more deliberate, organized, precise about finding the right information, getting super clear, approaching that job search in a much more rigorous way. Mac told me this story about someone, a woman who moved to Portland, who spent 6 months. She was very clear about the three things: job she wants, company she wanted to do it for, type of company, and the value that she provided. She spent 6 months researching and networking. 6 months. Then applied to three jobs, got three interviews, and landed one of those jobs. She did this kind of work. So, whether you are going to be applying to every job that kind of matches for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, or you're going to spend that time actually doing your due diligence, that is time that you should expect to spend. This is what I'm learning from talking to these folks. It's an employer's market. Demand for jobs is high because the supply is short. That might be changing, by the way, but we'll get into that in the next episode. Even so, it's going to take more time and effort on your part to find that best job, that right job. And you can decide how you want to spend that time, what's going to fit your methodology. But either way, that is you should just expect that. You should just expect to spend that kind of time. And if you are under no illusion that it is going to take this time, why not do it in a way that is going to be help you find increase the odds of finding a job that is a much more likely fit and long-term fulfillment of what you're looking for in a job. I am definitely more in that mindset of the signal side versus the scale side. But like I said, I think both can work, and it's up to you to decide how you want to approach it, and maybe even as a mix. One last thing I'll say, which is when you go with that signal side, that research angle, when you're putting the time and energy into the networking, all that work continues to provide value after you land the job, which is a lot more than I can say no responses or hard rejects from those bots and those emails. The Job Market Shit Show is brought to you by me and my company, Great Mondays, a change consultancy helping mid-sized private companies and their teams adopt and use AI. Learn more about my work at greatmondays.com. Are you swaying through the shit show? I'm collecting detritus and I need your help. Send me a screenshot of that tone-deaf rejection email, AI cover letter, or anything else shitty that comes your way. Seriously, send me your shit. The shittier, the better. I'm also collecting stories. If you have a story about looking for work, landing a job, hiring, let's talk. Either your screen caps or your stories can go right to stories@greatmondays.com. You can type out your rant, or we can have a call. I'm happy to hop on the phone. If you'd rather read or watch the Job Market Shit Show, you can find us on Substack and YouTube. And finally, a little request. If this helped you think a little different about how you approach job seeking or job hiring, please share it with one person or that group chat, someone who could benefit from knowing that they aren't the only ones who thinks this job market is a shit show. You're not alone. Things are changing, things are broken, and I'm here with you every step of the way to try to figure out what the hell is going on. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.